Welcome to our podcast, Doing It Right. This podcast reveals authentic stories from successful leaders doing it right. It's about their journey to become a leader, their choices, motivations, and lessons. In essence, how they built successful personal brands. Your host is Valerie Sokolosky, author of 8 leadership books and nationally known as an authority on executive presence and personal branding. Let's get started. Here's Valerie.
Well, hi, everyone. Today's show is sponsored by TD Industries, a premier values-driven organization that's mechanical construction and facility services. For almost 70 years, TD has embraced a culture of servant leadership, which we'll be talking about in just a minute. One of the outstanding things about TD is that they continually seek to develop trust partner relationships with their customers. And as such, today's program is about one of those partnerships, a 28-year partnership between Denton Independent School District and TD Industries. And I think the story here has so many different aspects to it. So I'm excited to welcome today Brian Lillard with TD Industries, who's the Vice President of Facilities, and Dr. Jamie Wilson, who is the Superintendent of the Denton Independent School District. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. So I'm just going to start out with a big, wide open question. What's the story here? What's the real story? We've got 2 organizations, but for people who are listening, what's the story?
Well, I think it's a story of partnership. For 28 years, TD Industries, I think, has helped the Denton Independent School District focus on what they do best, and that's educating students.
All right. And what do you think the story is?
Well, I'll tell you, that's a great question. And in the school business, we really work hard to try to find as many innovative ways as possible to get resources in the classroom where our teachers can make the biggest difference with our students. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways that you do that is by having good partners that can help you do the mechanical, the electrical, the different pieces that aren't necessarily educating students, mm-hmm. but are important for the work that we do and how those things work together.
So, Dr. Wilson, share with us about you and your background and coming to the Denton Independent School District.
Well, thank you. I'm about to start my 8th year as superintendent of schools, and I've been in Denton. This started my 15th year, and we have been building schools each and every year. In fact, we have built 11 schools in 10 years. We have over 6 million square feet of building space. So we're constantly looking for ways that we can be more efficient in our design, the way that we can really maximize our resources for what we do best. And I just finished up a 2-year term as the chair and president of the Fast Growth Schools Coalition across the state. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people know and realize that Texas is really drawing a lot of families, a lot of new people to our state. Mm-hmm. The economy is doing very well. Interestingly enough, about 80% of all of those new students fall in about 80 school districts in the state of Texas.
And you are the fastest growing, aren't you, school district in this whole area?
Well, there's really it's Denton, Frisco, and Northwest, depending mm-hmm. upon lots and how many home closings you have, and we're all right there together in the same region. So Frisco's probably a little faster than us. We're probably a little faster than Northwest. This goes back and forth all the time. So,
tell us how many schools? How
many
so buildings?
We have, like I said, we have over 6 million square feet of space, mm-hmm. And we have 45 buildings. When we finish with our construction, we finish growing out. We're currently in about 65 square miles with our schools, and we take up 180 square miles. So we're about a third of the way finished. We're opening our 24th elementary school this year. We have eight traditional middle schools, and then 4 comprehensive high schools, and then 3 other schools of choice and 2 early childhood centers. So it's always moving and always shaking. It's a great place to be.
I love that smile, so I can't help but ask this question. What do you, being there now just, 8 years as a superintendent,
right.
What do you love the most about what you're doing?
I think we're making a difference in our community for our students and for our families, and really adding value to the economics of our area. I mean, without a quality workforce, this growth in Texas wouldn't continue. And that's what our goal is to do, is to not only educate and provide a good workforce, whether it be college or career or military, but also help our adults in our community with good, high-paying, living wage earning jobs.
Sure.
And that's one of the reasons this partnership is important to us, because it allows for us to create opportunities for people in our community to grow and develop with an outstanding corporate partner.
That's a great segue to Brian ask you, what, from your perspective, what's this partnership doing for the community and for education and so forth?
Well, so a number of things. He talks about providing opportunities within the community. I think more than half of our technicians that are on site at the Denton ISD actually live in the school district. So that alone is providing back to the community. We also are working with the school district to assist them with their technical programs, so that as students graduate from a technical program, that they could roll into apprenticeships with TD.
Tell us about that.
So I think a lot of folks know that there's a skills gap out there.
Yes.
There's been a generation of young folks that aren't having the access to technical training, or not choosing that. And so us as a service provider, we struggle day to day in looking for qualified talent to bring into our organization. And so by forming a partnership with Denton ISD on that level, that folks that are coming out of their technical training programs, they can have an opportunity through TD Industries to begin learning a trade. Electrical, plumbing, HVAC. I want
to talk about that a little bit more, because I personally run into a lot of young people who they just really don't know what they want to do, and some of them are bent toward trades. And we used to have in our high schools, we used to have the trades. We don't anymore like we did. So I'd like to know more about, if someone's listening and they know someone that just isn't going to go to college, doesn't want to go, but they've got talent, they've got leadership ability. Tell us more.
Well, TD prides itself on developing individuals for careers. In fact, our mission statement talks about that we want to provide outstanding careers for our partners. So I personally would like to hire only individuals that don't know anything and train them. And so we can do that. And so I would encourage anybody who has an interest, if they have any mechanical aptitude at all, they don't have to have the skills training. We can provide that. They can go to our website, to our careers page, and apply for a position.
Well, how would a young person know if they have abilities in the different aspects that the company offers, air conditioning and plumbing and whatever?
I would say that if someone has a mechanical aptitude, if they like to figure out how things work.
There you go.
If they like to fix things. If they're the person in the family that's always called upon to set up the... I was about to say VCR, but
what is a VCR?
I don't think anybody has a VCR anymore.
Know what that is?
The iPhone.
Right?
What was that?
If Mom calls you to fix her
I'll take my
iPhone,
head off with that.
then you've probably got a mechanical aptitude.
I think that's great, and I also know TD is very, very heavily involved in getting women in the trades.
Exactly.
So you're taking advantage of their expertise. So how does the leadership aspect of all of this come into play, Dr. Wilson?
Well, there's a couple of things on the leadership front. First, we opened our Career Center in 2005, so we're 14 years into really working with students to move into the trade industry and to be contributing members in that arena. But in order for us to prepare that workforce the way it needs to be, we have to have outstanding partners leading the way with, what do you want these students to know? What do you want them to do? How do you want them to be able to think? And so while we're working to get the resource into the classroom for teaching and learning with some of the things that TD's providing and doing, the other leadership side of, here's what we need, here's what the workforce is looking for, here's what TD values, and then we can use some of their trainers, some of their technicians, some of their folks to work hand in hand with our students in our Career Center, and then move right into the profession and have a job that maybe they do want to go to school because they want to go into management.
Sure.
But it helps pay their way through, or they may not, right?
Yes.
They can grow with the company. And, whenever you start thinking about mechanical and electrical and plumbing positions in a school system or a hospital or a municipality or anything like that, that's not your primary work.
Right.
that you're really mission driven to do. And if you're not careful, that will become the part of your organization that lacks the most, which then impacts the culture and the climate of the workers who are subscribing to your mission. And so the leadership piece, I believe, is the most important thing that we can do, is to value those other pieces of the organization and of the business, frankly, the business side of education of our students.
Yeah.
And it's all about teaching and learning, don't get me wrong. And that's what we're all about. But our community had foresight to build a center in 2005, and we probably need to open up our second one as soon as we can find the room to do it, to begin and continue to provide those meaningful experiences for our students.
Is this unusual? Are you doing something that other school districts haven't?
You know, I think other school districts are there. They've done it in different capacities. Our partnership with TD it's going on 30 years. 28 years is 30 years in today's world, right?
Right.
So it allows us to see, we may have hired someone right out of high school to work for us in our maintenance department. And then they grow and they're really good learners, but they really could top out at a certain level with us. When we move into our partnership with TD, it allowed them to grow even further and move up the organization. And I think really as upper level vision type leaders, we have to realize what's best not only for my students and our employees, but also for those folks doing those jobs, to give them a good sense of what they can do and where they can go. And when he talked about over half their employees live in our school district, there's a direct benefit to that. All the businesses in our school district benefit from those employees living in Denton, right? We have restaurants, we have banks, we have car dealerships, so when those folks live here, it creates a great experience for the overall economy.
Great story.
Yeah,
Great story. So I have to ask you, what do you love the most about what you're doing?
Well, what I like the most is being able to add value. Sometimes what we do can be seen as a commodity, and so it's important to add value above and beyond just the day-to-day maintenance and repairs. And one example is what we do for the Denton ISD in relation to energy efficiency and tracking of that, and looking for savings and opportunities to save them money. And that is money that can go directly back into the education of students.
So let's talk about that, because I know there have been some amazing numbers that I've been reading on the site about the money that you've saved and where it goes. So I'd love to know more about how when you're on the site, the things that you're doing that you're really proud of, that are TD-ish, that are efficiencies and analytics or whatever.
Well, so the first piece of all of that is making sure that we do the day-to-day and that we do it well.
And what's day-to-day?
The day-to-day would be maintenance and repair of the facilities, and that's changing air filters, that's changing the belts on an air conditioner, making sure the light bulbs are operating. So we need to make sure that we do that well. And then we need to have tools available to us that allow us to monitor the performance of the facility.
Yes.
Because all those things that we do day to day, sometimes things come into play that we're not able to understand. And so the things that we are doing for Denton are tracking the energy usage to highlight anomalies. An example was a year ago, the water bill on a particular school facility skyrocketed in 1 month. Well, without that tool, we might not have caught that. And so we were able to look and locate a leak, repair it, and prevent that from causing any further damage to the that was, in that case, it was dollar savings. So
how much money did you save? I know you know the answer. I bet you do too.
I think it was the equivalent of two teachers.
It was just over $130,000.
Yeah, right. It's about
$130,000 saved just last year.
Right.
Equivalent of 2 teachers. Interesting.
Right.
Well, and to put that into even a bigger perspective, I told you about these 11 schools that we've built. We haven't added any money to our utility budget, adding that much square footage to the school district, because of the efficiencies we're putting into place. And it's having a good partner that can help you with installing LED lighting or using your controls to really make sure that you're utilizing your facility to the best of its ability. We have 5 different energy providers when it comes to electricity, and all those charge different rates, right? Everyone has the choices a lot of times to go out and get their own electricity. Well, we're not that different in the school district either, right? We have opportunities to go out and secure those rates as well, except for a couple of instances where we have a municipal electric company. But the importance of that is that we're able to look at and see how we can maintain some cost savings and then put those resources right back into the classroom.
Where
The
it
biggest hidden expense in any school district is deferred maintenance. I mean, any kind of that you're deferring maintenance and your equipment's not working the way it should is really a drain on the resources. And having a good partner that can be there with you and to use your own vitals, right? When you go to the doctor every so often, they know what your blood pressure is, they know what your resting heart rate is, they know those things, and when they're out of kilter, they help you get it back in kilter. Same thing with
Proactive.
very proactive with regard to that. And our maintenance people, men and women, they will do anything they humanly possibly can to get a classroom cooler or to get the lights back on. And sometimes that means taking some shortcuts to get it through the day. Well, that's great to get through the day, but they may get caught off to something else later, and you realize that now this chiller's been running for 24 hours because we covered up an intake valve or something, right? Some kind of intake system. And so it's having those checks and balances in place that, oh yeah, we did that so we could do this. We weren't sure to come back on. All those kinds of things that, really maintenance guys are kind of MacGyver-ish, right? They can fix
I love
anything.
that, MacGyver-ish.
They can kind of fix anything with a paperclip. And when you start thinking about that, having a good, and those are the people that really should look towards this kind of a profession, because with a little training they could really be MacGyver-ish, right?
Certainly.
And I think it's inherent upon us to really maximize it. And frankly, I know people hear this a lot, but it's take care of not only the students and the learning and the teachers, but of our taxpayer dollars, and make sure we're being efficient with those and not just pushing those out for no apparent reason. And this isn't all about just changing human behavior, like turn the lights off when you leave the room or those kinds of things. It's about putting systems in place and learning how to use the information that you're receiving to make good decisions.
Brian, we have a question. I'm guessing it's for TD Industries. They're asking if they do only facility work with school districts, and how about community colleges? Would you like to answer
So no,
that?
actually, TD works through a broad spectrum of our partnerships cover a broad spectrum. So education, both K through 12 and higher ed, community colleges, corporate environments, healthcare, as well as working with public entities like cities and states.
Stadiums?
So from a facility standpoint, not there yet, although we'd love to. But from a construction standpoint, yes, that's actually one of our construction teams, if you will, focuses is on building stadiums.
I'd love to go back to the fact that both organizations and the two gentlemen sitting here are values-based, and that's important. For those who don't know the values of servant leadership, or what it is, I mentioned that when we first started, servant leadership, and TD is known for that. But what is it? What is servant leadership?
That's a great question, because I've only been at TD for about a year and a half. And so when I was looking to join TD, there was a lot of talk about servant leadership. And I'd heard the term, didn't quite know what it meant. And as I learned more, I felt that actually the way I was leading my life and running my businesses fit in line with that. So maybe I was practicing it, but I wasn't going around saying that it was servant leadership. So I think there are probably a lot of folks out there that are practicing servant leadership and not really knowing it. But what is it? It really means that as a leader, your job is to support the folks that work for you. And that you as the leader are not the focus. It's the team that works for you. And particularly in our business, we are selling people.
Yeah.
And so we need to support them. And I, as a leader, need to support them. I need to provide them with a career path and the training they need to do their job, the tools they need to do their job, the right environment to do their job, and the right opportunities.
Yes.
So us as a business unit, we need to be continually looking for new opportunities, so that as someone at the Denton ISD project, for instance, is ready to make that step up, if there's not an opportunity in Denton, that they can go to that next opportunity. So that's the way I see servant leadership.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not like you're just letting people walk over you. You're a servant. No.
No,
You're
not
putting
at all.
the people
And
first.
Some people think that it means, well, okay, you got to get in there and get your hands dirty. Well, I can tell you, nobody wants me working on an air conditioner. So
You're not going to be MacGyver, huh?
no, well, I got a little MacGyver in me.
You'd have to.
Nobody's going to pay me for that. But it does mean providing them that support and the tools for them to do their job.
Sure, and that's what we all want in today's world. In the final times that we have together, you mentioned before the show that you're heavily involved in a board or something. You just
Sure.
tell us about this side of you, because I always want to leave with you as individual people, as the leaders that you are, and the experiences you have, what you're learning. So one of them, I'm sure, is from this involvement.
Sure, I'll be glad to talk about that. And to Ron's point about servant leadership, it's about the value add that you leave all your relationships. You know, you want to leave them in a better place than they were when you got there. Continuous improvement and being really together about making every relationship better because you guys were together. And that's really what this is about. And because of that, I'm involved with the Children's Advocacy Center of Denton County, which is a nonprofit organization that really works to help the students in Denton County, children in Denton County who have been victims of abuse, sexual abuse and different things in their families or in the world. And it tugs at your heartstrings. But that's what leadership and servant leadership is about. I mean, what a great place this would be if we all took the time to make every relationship we have better and not always take from it, but add to it.
That's great.
And I think that's really the gist of what we try to do. And from a school district's perspective, that's what we want our students to be able to do. And I feel really, really good about the next generation when it comes to taking care of each other and being together and not being divisive and really understanding each other from that perspective. And encourage other people to get involved in some way that you can serve. Your time is the most valuable thing that you have. And it's also the most meaningful whenever you give that time to someone else.
If you use it impactfully.
That's right.
Give me a couple of more. That's a really good leadership lesson. What else in your whole journey have you learned that you'd like to pass on to me and others?
The thing about leadership, I think, is really essential is that leadership is about not only adding value that we talked about earlier, but also teaching others how to teach others, right? So there's this long-standing quote about you're not a leader who develops a leader until they've developed a leader. So it's more about keep going that second and third level of leadership that you really are making a difference and you really are spreading the good news and trying to make sure that, yes, it's going to be hard decisions, and sometimes you have to make those hard decisions. But I think the most important thing that we've learned is there's always going to be a decision point, and the more feedback you can gather and the input you can gather before you make a decision, then that's considered feedback. But if you make you're going to hear the feedback one way or the other, but after the decision, it's usually criticism.
Right.
And so
Good
if you
point.
gather it beforehand, before you make a decision, then it's feedback and help us get to this decision point.
Yes.
And if you can agree with about 80% of the rationale and the reasoning, then you're going to be okay with it. But if once the decision is made and you haven't had the opportunity to solicit that feedback and it becomes criticism, then it's always going to be a yeah, but for every little thing. And even if you're 90% together, it won't matter because everybody's only going to focus on the 10%. So I really think it's, soliciting feedback before decisions are made, because you're going to get the feedback one way or the other before or after the decision.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's really simple for me to really try to collaborate and be engaged and involved and allow people into the decision-making process. Ultimately, I'm going to be held accountable for the decisions. But frankly, I'm not responsible for any of those day-to-day things that happen in those 2,000, 2,500 classrooms in our district, right? I mean, other people are. Now, I'm accountable for every decision they make.
Yes.
But I'm not responsible for making all of them. So if I'm not really teaching the importance of reflection, looking at your decision-making as you work through it, then I'm the one who's missing the ball.
That's true accountability.
All the
I
way
like
through.
that. True accountability.
Right.
Wow. What about you? Leave us with some great lessons that you've learned in your career.
Well, I'd say from a leadership perspective that trust is a big component for me. And really a lot of what Dr. Wilson said plays into that. I mean, trusting the folks that work with you and providing them with the comfort that they can trust in you and that you're going to do what you said you're going to do, and you're going to provide them the support that you've said you're going to provide to them. And so as long as that trust is built between the individuals, then leadership becomes a much more easier thing to do.
And trust still is at the top of the list as the number one every time issue in most organizations. And it's earned and learned, isn't it?
Mm-hmm,
28 years.
No question.
That says a whole lot of trust.
Back and forth.
You bet. What a great podcast we had today of learning two organizations that have lessons for anyone, that it's about knowing your customer, caring about the customer valuing the vendor in this case, and continuing to better each other instead of, well, what are they going to give me? And, well, this time maybe we'll go internal. Maybe we'll save some money here. We'll just do it ourselves. No, 28 years of this is really a lesson, I think, for any organization or people listening who are parts of it. So thank you both so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you for having us. It's great
You're
to
welcome.
be here.
You're welcome. And I'm delighted that TD is our sponsor, and they're going to have another wonderful meeting with us coming up in the near future. So in the meantime, I want to say thank you, my listeners that are loyal. It means so much to me. I know that you can listen to a lot of podcasts, but do what you know you need to do for the podcast, which is share. Go on the podcast, share the podcast, rate the podcast, make comments. I look at all of this. The analytics really are important to me, so thank you. In the meantime, you just stay authentic, build your brand, and always do it right. Thanks again. Bye now.
Thanks for listening. To receive Valerie's voice, free monthly leadership tips, and to learn more about her leadership programs and coaching, visit her website, valerieandcompany.com. Next week, we'll be here again to inspire, engage, and equip you with teachable points of view from successful leaders who have been doing it right. Until then, lead authentically.